Hello, Money Nation. Welcome to our safe space for all things money and to episode 5 in season 3 of the Hot Money Talks podcast. If you are just joining the community for the first time, let me do a little introduction. My name is Christine Ishampepe, the Money Mechanic, and I help you fix your finances. My mission is to equip African millennials and Gen Zs with adequate financial literacy, advice, and strategy so they can journey to financial freedom and live life purposefully on their own terms and to the fullest, because money is no more a barrier. I want you to live your best life. The Hot Money Talks podcast is a series of honest, open, and transparent money conversations that will guide you on your journey to financial freedom. Here on the podcast, we believe 100% that financial freedom is possible with the right set of knowledge, the right amount of time, and the right circle of people. Thank you for being here. In our last episode, we learned about 3 practical methods or strategies to get out of debt. Today's episode is a unique one because we will be learning about the 5 laws of gold, as outlined in my favorite finance book of all time, The Richest Man in Babylon. Now, I have read this book countless times, and the truth in it never gets old. The plot of this book is set in ancient Babylon and recounts the stories of men who desired wealth but knew not how to acquire it, side by side with the stories of men who acquired great wealth and who shared their financial wisdom generously, not just with the people around them, but with you and I, the readers. Now, this is a book I highly recommend for anyone looking to get their finances right. So let's dig in. What are the 5 laws of gold? Now, the first law of gold is this: gold cometh gladly and in increasing quantity to any man who will put by not less than 1/10 of his earnings to create an estate for his future and that of his family. So essentially, the first law of gold is stressing the importance of paying yourself first. And the concept of paying yourself first is something that is emphasized a whole lot in The Richest Man in Babylon. And the idea is that, when money comes into your hand, the usual practice is that we pay everybody else except ourselves. So we pay the hairdresser, we pay the bus driver, we pay the restaurant owner, we pay our tailor, we pay everybody else except ourselves, right? And the idea of paying yourself is setting money aside specifically to save for your future. And in saving for your future, we're talking about it in 2 ways. First way is ensuring that you're saving money for the rainy day. That is in form of an emergency fund. And then being able to save money to invest as well, because really that is how wealth is built. So the first law of gold is that gold comes gladly and in increasing quantities to a person who puts aside at least 1/10 of his earnings. So it means that if you are earning 50,000 naira a month, you should be putting aside nothing less than 5,000 naira in your savings, specifically with the idea that you are creating an estate for your future and for your family. So essentially, that you are preparing for the future and you are also building an estate for yourself. So we're talking about legacy and being able to build generational wealth. When we talk about legacy, when we talk about generational wealth, when we talk about wealth in itself, it starts from that little seed, that consistent practice of paying yourself first. And remember that if you want to invest, investing starts from saving, really, because if you've never invested before, then you need to be able to save money to invest, right? So you can see that really saving can never be overemphasized. Now, what is the second law of gold? The second law of gold is this: gold laboreth diligently and contentedly for the wise owner who finds for it profitable employment, multiplying even as the flocks of the field. And there is a quote here that buttresses on this point, and it says, and I quote, "Gold indeed is a willing worker. It is ever eager to multiply when opportunity presents itself." I love this quote because it, stresses again and again the fact that your money will not multiply if you do not put it to work. So you know how, they talk about the scientific easy idea that, an object will remain static until there's an external force that pushes it into motion. So essentially, you cannot expect your money to grow by itself. It won't develop legs or develop wings to fly. You must put the money to work. And this second law is stating that you must find for your money profitable employment. So you must look for profitable opportunities where your money can be put to use and given a chance to multiply. All right. The third law of gold states that gold clingeth to the protection of the cautious owner who invests it under the advice of men wise in its handling. Now, what this means is that even as you look for profitable opportunities to put your money to work, you must be careful that you do not put your money in the hands of incompetent people who are careless in handling gold. So you must seek the advice of people who actually have experience, who actually have competence in handling money. If not, they'll jeopardize your treasure. And if you've read The Richest Man in Babylon, you would see at the beginning of the story, one of the characters got scammed essentially because he gave his money to someone who didn't have any tangible idea about the so-called investment. And when you look at the reasons why people get scammed, you would see that one of the reasons is the fact that they entrusted their money into the hands of people who were not wise in handling money. So even as you look for profitable investments, don't just give your money to every Tom, Dick and Harry who claims to know what they're doing. Where is the evidence? Ensure that you have researched and they have proven to have a solid track record in the so-called investments that they are pitching to you. So you must protect your gold at all costs. That's the lesson here. Now, the fourth law of gold. The fourth law of gold states that gold slippeth away from the man who invests it in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar or which are not approved by those skilled in its keep. Now, under this particular law of gold, the emphasis here is on investing in what you understand. Now, if you've read my free ebook, How Not to Get Scammed, you can just type that on Google, How Not to Get Scammed by the Money Mechanic, and you can get a copy for yourself. I talk about the importance of doing your research before investing in any venture. You must be familiar with a venture before putting your money in it. Take your time to learn about an investment before putting your money in it. And the fourth law is stating that you should not put your money in a business or a venture that you're not familiar with or that is not approved by those who are skilled in that area. And there's a quote right here that says, "Wise indeed is he who investeth his treasures under the advice of men skilled in the ways of gold." So this also means that as you are looking to invest, ensure that you get advice from people who actually have the knowledge of handling money or the knowledge of the investments that you intend to put your money in. So information is power in this sense. Don't go into an investment blindly without asking for more information, without asking the right questions, without probing, without researching, without gaining advice from people who actually know more than you. And personally, this is where I advise that even if you have to pay for solid advice concerning an investment, it is better to pay the price for good advice, right? than to pay the price of a wrong investment. It is better to pay the price for good advice than to pay the price for a wrong investment, because it's gonna be bloody. Now, the fifth law of gold says, gold flees the man who would force it to impossible earnings, or who followeth the alluring advice of tricksters and schemers, or who trusts it to his own inexperience and romantic desires in investments. Now, this is where we talk about the fact that we must not allow greed guide our investment decisions. Now, again, I mentioned in my book that greed is one of the reasons why people get scammed, because you're too greedy. You're looking for where you can multiply 10,000 naira and make it 100,000 naira without doing any work and within a very, very limited period of time. But you see, when you force your money to impossible earnings, as the book puts it, right, you will definitely lose money. Gold will flee from you. When you follow the advice of tricksters, scammers, when you trust in your inexperience and your romantic desires, and in this sense, that is your obsession for money. So you're not investing because you want to steadily build wealth. You're just investing because you're obsessed with money. You just want money at all costs. And you're allowing your greed get the best of you. If you have such an attitude, trust me, gold, money, it won't stay long in your hand. You will lose it. You will lose it. So control your greed when it comes to investing. So let's run through the 5 laws of gold before we call it wraps today. Okay, we've said that the first law of gold is that you must set aside at least 1/10 of your earnings. Second law is that you should find profitable employment for your money. In other words, put your money to work, invest. The third law of gold is that you must find competent people, okay, to invest your money with, okay? And then the fourth law of gold is do your research before investing in anything. Do your research before putting your money in any investment. Seek advice, even if you have to pay for the advice, pay for it. And finally, the fifth law of gold is do not invest out of greed or obsession for money. When you force your money to bring forth impossible earnings, you will lose your money. Now that you have learned about the 5 laws of gold, what will you do about it? Remember that these laws will never work for anyone who fails to put them into practice. And according to the author, the 5 laws of gold offer to thee a rich reward for their observance. End of quote. Did you enjoy today's episode? Thank you for listening. Now, sharing is caring, so please go ahead and share the link to this episode with someone you want to see win with their finances this year and beyond. It would mean the world to me if you took a few minutes to leave me a review in the comment section of this podcast so that others can see your endorsement and join the community of listeners who enjoy this podcast. If you have any burning questions that you would like me to answer on the podcast, please shoot me an email via talktothemoneymechanic@gmail.com and let me know your dilemma. Don't forget that new episodes of the Hot Money Talks podcast drop every Saturday, and you can listen to them on your favorite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Subscribe and follow the show on either of these platforms so that you are notified whenever an episode is released. Recommendations are powerful, so please tell your friends and your family about this podcast so we can go on this journey together. To connect with me on other platforms, do well to follow The Money Mechanic at The Money Mechanic page on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I hope most importantly that you will take action on your finances today. Sending you love, light, and a sprinkle of money in between.